She's the executive director of the Community Building Institute at Xavier University, helping communities organize their own redevelopment for tapping into the passion of their residents and identifying the assets of their neighborhoods. She's worked in planning for more than 30 years. Much of her research is focused on the issues of affordable housing, urban education, land use, equity, and community engagement. She also serves as the co-director of Xavier's master's program in urban sustainability. Please welcome Liz Blume.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here and having this conversation. I want to thank Nathan Wendt from Xavier back on our campus for asking me to do this today. So what Nathan said to me is, you've been doing a lot of work about housing over the last several years at the Community Building Institute, which we have indeed. So the question is, what might we talk about around this topic of housing insecurity? And I had to think about that. So in Xavier, at the Community Building Institute in Cincinnati, about 3 years ago, we started to hear some information from partners of ours, Legal Aid, LISC, Home, having an affordable housing problem in Cincinnati. And it was like, well, that doesn't sound right, because this is a very affordable housing market. Most of the universities that were just identified are in the Midwest, right? We are not San Francisco, we are not Boston. How can we possibly have an affordable housing crisis? As a matter of fact, what most of the communities that we are all from experienced in the 90s and the early 2000s was property decline, a neighborhood decline, a foreclosure crisis, which left lots of affordable housing, right? So I want to talk a little bit about strongly held ideas. So we in the Midwest know that we have affordable housing markets because we've been hearing it for generations. This is a good place to raise your family. These are really affordable housing markets. So how can we possibly have an affordable housing problem, right? And I think that that really lingers in all of our minds. Every time StubHub or USA Today or anybody does one of those top 10 lists about the most affordable places to live in the United States, Cincinnati is on that list. And every time that happens, people send me all those articles and say, see, it can't really be that bad. This is like a long-held belief that we all have. And so, I think that, I'm going to tell you, there is absolutely an affordable housing problem in Cincinnati. In Hamilton County, we have a shortage of something like 40,000 units. 40,000 units in Hamilton County. Homelessness, people live in libraries and live on the street because they don't have a house and they can't afford housing. And so if we have a shortage of 40,000 units, that's a problem. But somehow we just don't believe it, right? Because we know this is an affordable housing market. And so what that leads to, I think, is this notion that it's got to be the people who are looking for housing's fault, right? Because I can find housing. When we first put out the document that said there was a shortage of 40,000 units, one of the things that a reporter asked the audience of advocates for affordable housing was, well, explain this to me. If this is such a problem, how come I can find a very reasonable house? And the answer is because you're middle class and you have money. This is a very affordable housing market, Cincinnati, the Midwest in general, if you have money. If you don't have money, this is a problem. And that's really the issue. And so I think lots and lots of people who need to come together and solve this affordable housing problem don't have a problem. Somebody else has a problem. And this is a really affordable housing market, so maybe it's not that big of a deal. And I think that that takes us down this road, which is, it's not that big of a deal. So maybe some people are having a problem. And what I would like to say is, for a 40,000 unit shortage is a big deal, and it means that we have to marshal way more resources than we have been. So my friends in the affordable housing market often think that this is really about production, right? We solve the affordable housing problem by producing affordable housing. And that's partly right, but I think that mostly we need to create inclusive communities. We need to create communities where everybody is welcome, there is room for everybody, and there is enough affordable housing in every neighborhood to support everybody. So there's this conventional wisdom. Conventional wisdom is stuff that you don't have to do any research. I just know it. I just know that this is an affordable housing market. And so it takes a minute to get beyond that and say, okay, we need to do something. There's another piece of conventional wisdom that I think takes us down an equally difficult sort of rabbit hole. And that is, it's a false choice, right? People say, I'm going to do this or that. I'm a D or I'm an R. These guys are the good guys, these are the bad guys, right? It's easy to sort of create a dichotomy of choices. And in the affordable housing arena, the sort of false choice that we've created is we either do neighborhood revitalization and stimulate markets and do economic development, gentrification by a different name, or we provide affordable housing. And we create good guys and bad guys in this scenario, right? The good guys are the affordable housing advocates, the bad guys are the gentrifiers. I don't think that's helpful, and I don't think it's the right battle. I think it's a both and. Cincinnati has old housing. A lot of the housing that people live in and love, me included, in Cincinnati was built over 100 years ago. This stuff needs to be invested in. Housing that isn't invested in, that is 100 years old, is gonna fall down. And so we really need to create investment in community, but we need to create investment in community that includes everybody. And the market produces high-end and market rate housing in most Midwestern communities. The market does not provide affordable housing when people are making minimum wage of less than $15 an hour. Doesn't, full stop. So we have to do something about that. And so if we're only doing half of the equation, which is stabilizing markets and stimulating economic development, we're never gonna have the kind of resources that we need for affordable housing. And I'm gonna go back to this sort of, these thought traps that we get ourselves into. The first one is it's not really that big of a deal, it's not really an issue, and we have to do one or the other, focus our resources, limited resources. I think those are all false choices. And I think that they take us in the wrong direction. So I'm gonna leave you, I have 10 minutes, I'm probably already over. I wanna leave you by saying there is an affordable housing problem, and the whole community has to respond in order to create truly inclusive neighborhoods. Because if all we do is produce more units, we're not going to get where we need to go.